Hello, team, and welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today. This is upper bracket action from the Line War T1 2023 tournament between AK, Misk, and Blue, and someone said that my nickname sucks in red. The winner of this game goes on to the grand final. The loser is knocked down to the lower bracket and will play against Tomahawk. In the lower bracket final, the winner of the lower bracket final will meet the winner of this game in the grand final. So we could have this as a rematch for the grand final of the tournament. But we'll see. AK, Misk, and Blue in the bottom right going for 2 towns, an airport, and a barracks. And someone said that my nickname sucks. In the top left a little bit, starting with 3 factories in this mountain range and following up with a barracks and a 4th factory. There's not really much energy for nickname in this mountain range, so the well that they're going to take is in the north here. In those mountains. And a strong eco start from Blue, making helicopters out of the airport. And this is exciting. Some people called this as the matchup for what would be the grand final of the tournament. Obviously, both very good players. Everyone who made it into this tournament is a good player. At Line War, some of the best. Top of the ladder. I'm hyping it up and it better deliver, and I think it will. It'll be interesting to see if nickname goes for more tanks out of this 4th factory. They've got the first energy well down, or the refinery down now. And no production out of these factories for a little bit. I think with building the refinery, nickname is a little bit low on money. This 4th tank starts going down now. And first helicopter is done for AK with some commandos out of 1 barracks. And infantry out of the other. So it'll be a mix of commandos and infantry capping to the left. Both players are going to have some time to macro and kind of build up before they see each other. This is what nickname's vision is. If nickname can't see AK, then AK can't see nickname. And AK has got a 2nd helicopter on the way and a tank out of this factory, and put a barracks in the mountain to help cap all this open field. The first 3 factories for nickname are continuing to build tanks. The 4th factory is building SAMs. The SAMs are going to be very useful because AK is going to have a bunch of helicopters relatively soon. Blue going for a dock on the right-hand side. And the indication with this command is that it's going to be, well, I mean, this is transport boat and a destroyer, I think, on this path. So it's probably anyone's guess whether this is a destroyer first to start capping a bunch of these territories and scouting, or if it's going to be a transport boat immediately to drop some blue infantry off on this top right landmass. And if we zoom out on the map, there are some trade routes up in the top right. There's also trade routes in the top left. So if nickname can cap all these and get these 3 trade routes up, that is enormous income. And on the right-hand side, AK might have, you know, preferential rights to this trade route. It's just one of them, though. And 3rd helicopter for Blue. Nickname almost has the first SAM completed. Actually, it is. I lied. 2nd SAM's nearly completed. And the tanks are rolling out a little bit. The territory that AK is capping comes into view, so nickname has an idea of where Blue is. Same thing. AK is about to see these tanks roll in division. And we'll see if AK, pardon me, decides to send the helicopters right away or delay for a little bit. More tanks from Blue out of that factory. And we can check the eco. AK is likely going to have a little bit more just because of these 2 towns that they started on. So 550 income for Blue and 480 for Red. There is a mountain range in between these red tanks and the blue base, which is great for AK because it's going to buy a lot of time, even if Nickname decided to just yeet these tanks over the mountain range and try to scout and destroy what's ever on the other side of this. And here come the tanks. Nickname's gonna, or pardon me, here come the helicopters. Nickname's gonna back up with the tanks. And now it becomes a question of how quickly Nickname can get SAMs here, and then the positioning of it, and the cat and mouse game of AK trying to find as much damage with the helicopters without losing any of them to the SAMs. One of the tanks is destroyed. And on the rest of the map, Nickname has a commando down in the bottom left. And some great car action between the two players. Trying to get as much damage as possible with their units. The helicopters are going to land really close to the tanks. And the helicopters, the strength being that they don't have to land in an airport and take up a spot like that. But sometimes they can definitely land in spots that you wouldn't expect. Because there's not a ton of control that you get over their landing position. They are up in the air, though. The one Sam's trying to stay out of range. The nicknames, or pardon me, I'm going to call AK Nickname this whole game. I'm going to call Nickname AK this whole game. But Blue is going around to try to attack the Sam. It's a great play. And AK does get it. And every SAM that Blue destroys is huge because then it allows the Blue helicopter numbers to accumulate. And then every subsequent run, there's one less SAM for them to deal with. Nickname's got 4 more tanks about to reinforce. There's a mix now of SAMs and tanks out of the factories for Red. And a 5th factory now for Nickname, with another barracks in this mountain range. We quickly check the bottom right. So it is a transport boat and a destroyer. No infantry on the transport boat yet. And in the mountains, AK has a bunch of units, but there will be a few commandos for Nickname. And we've seen Nickname use commandos to great effect. If just a few of them get by this infantry force and get into AK's base, they can do a ton of damage. AK has gone for a second refinery and connected them with a pipeline. And the SAM taking some cheeky shots at the landed helicopter. AK is going to jet forward to try to snipe this SAM, but Nickname is here with a large amount of tanks. They should be able to fend off the blue tanks, and they are able to do so. And overall, a pretty good defense from Nickname. The 2 helicopters are going to take on the SAMs now. They might be able to destroy one of the SAMs, but not 2 of them. You can see the tanks with their turrets up towards the sky, because they actually do attack the helicopters. They don't do a lot of damage, but they can attack it. And with the second reinforcing SAM, another helicopter goes down for AK. Blue now is sending the tanks around, probably going for a scout. Or just to buy time, because sometimes if you just send one of your own tanks off, your opponent will just follow with all of their tanks. And then you're wasting their energy, you're also wasting their time. Nickname doesn't pause for long though, sending the tanks back to the front line. It now has some artillery pieces, which will kind of counteract this infantry numbers advantage that Blue has at the moment. Lucky shots by those infantry take out one of the tanks. It's still a lot of tanks for Red. Nickname's probably going to get a second refinery anytime now. And that's already happened. A barracks on the bottom left for Nickname, creating commandos. And a relatively big fight here. Tanks do a great job to body block for their artillery. Unfortunately, they're a little bit out of range, so the artillery pieces can't be shelling all this infantry. Still just a handful of boats, more destroyers for AK in that bottom right dock. The nickname is going to clean this up. Helicopters for AK have rotated to the bottom left because of the SAM numbers that Red has in this open field. There's now 5 of them here. Some more tanks and SAMs at home for Red. And slowly, Nickname's going to accumulate some SAMs in the south here to work against these helicopters. 2 barracks for AK in the mountains. This is a lot of infantry for Blue that should be able to sniff out this barracks and destroy it. And the what is now 4 tanks, rather 3 tanks, rather 2 tanks for Red. I was going to say they're doing a great job just pushing forward, but a few of them were low health and now they got to retreat. Nickname's going to send all the production down to the south for the next little bit. The tanks are going to struggle in the mountains a little bit, but they are still tanks, so they're very good. No matter what terrain they're in. They're just slower in the mountains. And there's no real way that Nickname's going to be able to push through this mountain range. There's another factory here for AK as well, which will help with the defense. 3 SAMs in the south for Red. They're likely going to get one of the helicopters. And they do. In fact, they'll get 2 of them. And now if Nickname can get into this mountain range and hold this mountain range, it's a very strong position. The SAMs are going to be even better in the mountains because of that stealth bonus that they get, that any units get when they're in a mountain range. But AK is putting down a factory in the middle here. This is very calculated because this factory is going to actually build. There's a 50% build time penalty when you put a building in the mountains. So this is actually in flat land, so there's no penalty for it, but it's relatively safe because it's surrounded by mountains. A little bit of a push here from AK, who has the tank advantage, the numbers here. And might just be able to break through this. It's actually a pretty close fight, given the number of units on both sides. There's no air support for AK. It wouldn't really help because there's 5 SAMs here anyway. But very slowly, AK is breaking this. Now that the tanks are on top of the artillery, they should be able to clear it relatively quickly. These 3 tanks for Nickname are going to kind of change the math on all of this. And these are 2 very important pushes at this point in the game. Nickname probably, I was going to say doesn't see any of these buildings, but they actually do. There's enough red units here that they have that cumulative vision to see these buildings in the mountain range. And they're heading right towards the factory. And in fact, they're going to try to target the factory. It's commandos, tanks, and artillery pieces for Nickname are all going to just target this factory once they're in range. You can see just how slow the tanks are. And it's exacerbated by the fact that this is AK's territory. This is blue-controlled territory, so the tanks will move even more slowly through those mountains. There's commandos somewhere. Right here for Nickname. Targeting the barracks. Still a relatively static fight on the field part of the map. Defender's advantage for AK is huge here, and then of course none of the main production for Red is actually pushing to the right. It's all pushing down in the south in the mountains. The mountains are probably the more important position to contest. If AKA gets a base set up here, it's well within striking range of Nickname's starting position. And helicopters for AK working on this barracks at this point. Red is going to be able to destroy all these buildings, given the size of this army. And all destroyers. This is actually all connected. The destroyers could go around the top. They can actually reach this town and port that Nickname is building, starting to set up this trade route. I'm building a barracks back here, probably going to be commandos out of that barracks for red. Both as just a garrison around the town and the port and the refinery. And then probably up, like, for all sorts of different things that Nickname uses commandos for. They're great scouting units. They can destroy buildings relatively quickly. Somehow Nickname hasn't lost this barracks yet. So Nickname's actually microing this commando, the move command, to put more of those commandos underneath the helicopter to snipe it. It's great play. And saves that barracks, at least for now. We gotta check the eco. 845 for red. 950 for blue. That will change relatively quickly if Nickname can set up this trade route. The town is now complete. And the port in the north is also complete. So we'll wait for red to put down another port. And when that's completed, first trade route is up and we'll start generating a bunch of money. The barracks does survive in the bottom left. And AK working on the first town of their own. Well, rather, it's their third town, but it's the first one in this trade route. More barracks for AK somewhere. It is right here in this forest. Because at some point, AK is going to have to push back through this mountain. Or it's very likely that at some point they're going to need to, because there's no real reason why Nickname won't just start putting production in this mountain range. A lot of tanks for blue here. But defender's advantage for Nickname, it should be okay. They're probably not at risk of losing any buildings here. A good amount of garrison units around the refinery. And building commandos out of that barracks. This is a big play because AK is going to scout and probably even just destroy this town and port with one cruiser. Or pardon me, one destroyer. Nickname's got the second port on the way. But this scout from the destroyer is enormous, and it's going to be even worse because 4 more destroyers are going to show up right behind it. So if there's any doubt that that town and port would be destroyed, it's no longer really a question of whether it happens, it's just how long it'll take for those blue destroyers to destroy all those buildings. This is a very strong push from Nickname. With 5 SAMs here, that's plenty to deal with this many helicopters, unless there's more. So there's a 4th one showing up. But 4 helicopters against 4 SAMs, and then these units. Nickname should be fine, but we'll see. Okay, so red is going to move command these SAMs over. But in the meantime, the helicopters are going to get at least 1 tank here. And this is a lot of tanks from both players. Both of whom are just on these 2 refineries that they've built. Destroyers have seen that town and port. And a dock now for Nickname in this middle bay. I mean, with how many boats that Nickname has seen AK producing, it makes sense that Nickname will want... Like, it'll be tough to keep... What I'm... Jeez. What I'm trying to say is this trade route is so important the longer that this game goes. Especially because AK is going to have a trade route in the top right. So Nickname building that dock, probably one to defend their own trade route system, but then to also get aggressive and try to deny AKA from having that trade route over time. The longer this game goes, the more that is going to matter for the econ for both players. Nickname is sending all these tanks on a move command trying to get towards this town. AK is running a little bit low on energy. That's what the beep beep sound we heard was. Nickname, on the other hand, has tons of energy. And this could be a big moment in the game if Nickname can do a lot of damage with these 6 tanks that have gotten through. Blue tanks are smoking. That's... I mean, we can see that AKA is a little bit low on energy, which is also tough because it means that they can't retreat like this helicopter that's on the ground or fly any of these helicopters to start defending against this tank. So this one starts flying, but it immediately goes down, does some weird cool maneuver. I actually would have thought that it was going to land, but AK is not moving any of these tanks, so maybe the energy is fine for now. This is Nickname's vision, so the tanks see this airport, they'll probably go destroy it, or there might be a focus on the energy. These SAMs are in a lot of trouble now. There's no escort for these red SAMs. These blue tanks are going to be able to destroy them. And there's just so many fights going on in this game. We got these tanks trying to jet towards this refinery, some red tanks fighting blue infantry in the forest, or pardon me, in the field. And those red SAMs on the left of the screen are in a lot of trouble. This refinery is certainly going to be destroyed. There's a chance that Nickname could actually get the second refinery. That's what this move command is. So as soon as these tanks are done with destroying this refinery, they're heading over here. And income-wise, 983 for red and 1140 for blue. AK's built this town on the far right, has some commandos up here on Nickname's territory. There's a good garrison, like we mentioned earlier, on that refinery for Nickname in the north, so it's not like those blue commandos are going to be able to destroy it. But they are taking back some territory. Tanks on the bottom right are very clearly going to get this refinery. There's no way that these helicopters and tanks are going to be able to get there in time for AKA, who is making a replacement refinery here in the south. And Nickname's making another refinery on the other side of this mountain range. AK has a good push going through here, though. And these infantry might be able to spot and destroy this before Nickname can defend. Because all the production is going towards the center at this point. Nickname's got their own destroyers on the way. This town and port is still alive because these these destroyers, pardon me, for AK are capping. But they will eventually get here. And AK has actually got a water gas in the north as well, but still struggling a little bit on the energy. The tank's just bucking around when they're out of gas and sending out that smoke, so they also take more damage over 5 seconds. And these tanks must have destroyed a refinery again. AK probably just rebuilt this immediately. And it'll be ultimately infuriating for blue if Nickname can snipe that this other refinery that's been rebuilt. This is a great amount of units for blue in the mountain range. And still no huge risk of AK losing this position in the mountains. Worst case scenario, AK could also dig into this mountain range and it'd be very difficult to get through it. Nickname has found this refinery. We'll be able to destroy it with those 2 destroyers. But AK is slowly going to start working on this town and port on the left-hand side. Two tanks from Nickname are still alive. There's only 1 left. These 4 red tanks are kind of going in to, at the very least, disrupt reinforcements. And there's a strong chance that Nickname's going to lose this mountain range again. There's some helicopters on the way to start helping out. There's no blue SAMs here, so they're going to be effective until some SAMs are sent over here. It's a long way from this factory to the mountain range, though. So until then, these helicopters are going to do great for red. These tanks are in trouble for Nickname, but they're going to trade decent. And in fact, they're going to try to get out of there at this point. Still 1 tank left. AK can't see this tank because it's in the mountains and it's stealthed. So let's see if Nickname can actually destroy another refinery with that tank. I mean, so far, Nickname's done a great job of keeping AK low on energy. Which not only messes up the kind of like momentum and cadence that Blue is able to play at, but it's just very good in that your opponent can't move these. Like when the units run out of gas, they're taking that extra damage. And so it makes all your units more effective when they're fighting these tanks like this. AK is going for it here, sees that this is well defended, so will back off with the commandos, but has capped this part on the top right. Starting to work on the top right island is Blue. And finally this refinery, or this tank, pardon me, for Nickname was destroyed, but not after it damaged this refinery pretty heavily, so good reaction from AK to notice that one single tank for Nickname is going to destroy this refinery. It's just like playing whack-a-mole with AK's refineries at this point. And the helicopter's being super effective against the tanks, but it's still a lot of Blue units, and they might be able to destroy this refinery. And the center's heating up again. 4 commandos for Nickname are flanking this mountain range, heading towards this town, these 2 towns rather. But AK's got some helicopters here. Let's see if they're pulled to defend. And the 5 destroyers for AK were able to destroy this town. Nickname is rebuilding another town relatively close and putting down some industry. Somehow AK holds this territory. And still no anti-air for Blue here. But there is clearly a large army that Nickname's going to have to deal with at some point, but it's very difficult to do so right now. Red's going for a little bit of a push through the field. AK is putting down 2 factories in the south, one of which in this mountain range, with the aim of probably, hopefully not losing the mountain range this time. 4 commandos from Nickname on this refinery. This is, I mean, the pace at which these players are playing with how many fronts are going on. Bravo, to say the least. 2 airports in total for Nickname. Second one being built right now. There's 3 helicopters down in the south, but Nickname has lost this refinery. They're still fine on energy at the moment. And Nickname will likely have to back up to try to defend this town, because there's no stopping AK through this mountain range at this point. Here comes this digging from Blue in the mountains, so they will get that defensive bonus. And a transport boat for Nickname. It's going to be a 5v3 with destroyers up here in the north. And there's 7 helicopters for Blue ready to go to either defend a move like this from Red, or potentially to push forward and then start hitting all these production facilities. Okay, so AK is going to disband this defensive line and push. And trying to gauge army size, kind of difficult with this setup. Blue certainly has more infantry than Red does. The 4 commandos were able to destroy one of the refineries. There's actually a commando here for Nickname working on this tank. The tank can't see this commando because it's stealth, because it's in the forest. And one tank for Blue is not enough to get vision there. Nickname's now sending all their production to the bottom to try to defend this push from AK that's going through the mountains. Nickname's also opening up this like central location, which is great because it's going to drag some of these reinforcements away from this fight. And it seems like Red is content to push here. Blue has more artillery. And Nickname's going for a refinery again and putting down a barracks in this forest super close to AK. This is AK's vision, so they can't see it. Nickname's going to get this town with the destroyers. And how did this fight go? Yes, so AK wins this fight with the destroyers and doesn't actually even lose a destroyer at all. And income-wise, 1190 for blue, 1027 for red. Nickname's trying to get towards this refinery again. Clearly, this is the strategy, and it has been working. The commandos get the refinery on the bottom right. And how is AK's gas? Pretty low. Perfect timing to go over there. And this makes it really tough. I mean, this many helicopters could easily take out 2 SAMs. But of course, they can't fly. AK wins this fight over time at the base of the mountain. 2 SAMs from AK get a helicopter. And another one for red goes down. AK is going to finally clear out this barracks with the amount of infantry that are starting to cap in the bottom left. We can check if there's any other islands that have been taken. Not on the left-hand side. AK now has this territory under control, but it's tough to want to build that town because those 2 destroyers are on the loose. And I think a big question now is whether AK can defend this mountain range. If Nickname can push through, it's obviously great for red. There's not a ton of SAMs with this army. And although one of the helicopters might get picked off here, there's still a decent amount for blue. Commandos are going to target fire this refinery, or this factory, pardon me. And they might actually be able to get it. And jeez. AK can't see any of these commandos or this barracks still. AK is actually resorted to putting down power plants at this point. Power plants being 1/3 as efficient as a refinery. They cost the exact same amount as a refinery. And it's just, it speaks to how successful red has been in destroying these refineries over and over again. The commandos are actually going to get the dock here. And this is finally going to force blue to send some units from these production structures to go destroy those commandos instead of pushing forward. It's all just helicopters from Nickname out of the airports. Commandos now starting to go across. Nickname's going to win this fight because the commandos can't really be seen by blue infantry. And Nickname's going to get his scout off, actually trying to send this boat down to destroy this town. AK luckily has a destroyer here. And over time, AK is going to clear this up. These 4 commandos now give vision for blue, so none of these red commandos are invisible anymore. And this is the spiciest fight we got going. It's great combined arms. Here come the helicopters. They might not even all be able to get there just because the energy situation is so tough for blue. But if they do get on top of these SAMs, they will destroy them very quickly. So 1 helicopter goes down, so does 1 SAM. The helicopters get a tank as well relatively quickly, but unfortunately they need to go home now because they're out of energy. And a big artillery army from AK, but there's no SAMs with it. These 3 helicopters for Nickname could be huge here. AK's got a barracks down first on the top right, but it's followed very quickly from Nickname. And this destroyer is actually going to get this town, which may or may not be a big deal. We can check the eco. 1225 for blue, 1017 for red. So pretty big pickup from Nickname to destroy that town. The one problem is that AK has finally cleared out all these commandos, so we'll be able to rebuild these refineries over time. And then all these helicopters are going to be able to start flying more consistently. A little bit of a stalemate in the mountains here. AK still has more numbers. And 3 helicopters against 1 SAM. SAM is hitting this one in the center because this center helicopter is the one that is the most damaged. It does get it. But it's cleaned up shortly afterwards. More SAM production from AK, who loses another helicopter in the south. But good use of the commandos and the infantry to push these SAMs back and keep these helicopters safe. Helicopters for Nickname send these destroyers away, but it's kind of scary. It's still tough for Nickname to build this trade route when those destroyers are up. And what's going on the top right? Still 2 barracks, more commandos on it than Nickname. AK is pooling destroyers really close to the shore. What I meant to say is that Nickname has more infantry in the top right. So over time, Nickname would be able to take that landmass. But the destroyers being very close to the barracks is great because Nickname can't destroy this barracks with commandos because they'll get attacked from the destroyers from blue. We've seen before in the series how people have found success, you know, building your buildings very close to the shore and then parking your boats very close to them to defend them naturally. And another refinery for AK, who's slowly getting the energy thing under control. Nickname's trying to land on this mountain range. There's no possible way. This is a very tough LZ. And it's good because for Nickname, as long as they're denying this trade route from AK, it's not as big of a deal that they don't have the trade route on their side of the map just yet. Nickname is building the first town and has 1 destroyer kind of watching it in the north and 2 in the south. These 5 destroyers for AK still exist though. And blue destroys one of the farms for Nickname, who's digging in the field, trying to push through this central location. Here comes all the helicopters. So it's going to be a lot of helicopters against 3 SAMs potentially. Oh, the SAMs are just out of range, so they're not getting any hits here. They'll probably start sending some SAMs relatively soon. There we go. First 3 are off. And this is just the fight along 3 fronts. AK is going to start pushing through the center field, seeing that there's not actually that many units here. Nickname has dug in though, so at least it'll make these few infantry a little bit more resilient. Artillery working on these SAMs, and red SAMs working on these helicopters. And we're again back in a situation where Nickname's going to have to push through this mountain range, and it's going to be very difficult to do so. Alright, all these helicopters against all these SAMs, and the SAMs are doing great at the moment. They're probably going to get 1 more. Hi, lad. Eco-wise, 1225 for blue, 1140 for Nickname. So red has caught up a little bit here on the eco numbers. This barracks is now exposed. The red destroyer might be able to destroy it. But Nickname is going to lose a refinery at the same time. And I think this is still anyone's game. 48 minutes in. Nickname's got 4 commandos. How many times have I said that in this video, or ever? But those 4 commandos are going to be able to destroy that refinery because they're on the loose. And there's nothing really down there for AK to defend it. And here comes the gruesome push from Nickname into the mountain range. There's a handful of tanks that are kind of soaking some of the damage, which allows these red artillery pieces to work in the back from the safety. And this is a substantial number of artillery pieces for AKA that are pushing through that field. There's only 2 SAMs along with the army, the 3rd one's showing up now. Nickname's going to send all the helicopters to the mountain range, clearly making a bet that this is so important. This is the moment that Nickname needs to make progress in this mountain range. The SAMs are in a great position. They're going to be here to greet these helicopters pretty much immediately. One red artillery piece helping out with that SAM, and it does go down. But at the cost of... I mean, the Nickname probably won't even get out with 1 helicopter here. And you just see the reinforcements on the right of the screen for AK. It's this defender's advantage. Another factory for blue. Which should make it very, like, almost impossible for Nickname to now get through this mountain range. Because it's a 2-front push. Really, this is a non-trivial army that Red has to face in the field. And then also all this production, 3 barracks and 3 factories that get to jam up this mountain range. There's only 2 SAMs left now, so the second round of helicopters are going to be able to help push this back. But I think AK just starts posting up pretty close to these buildings and we'll be okay. Very good retreat move from blue there. There's now 4 SAMs along with all this artillery. And Nickname is going to just hang out at the base of this mountain range. There's no real point in pushing into the field, and they know that. Because this is a lot of units, and there's no real tanks or overwhelming air or the same number of artillery pieces that Nickname has to be able to contest this. Nickname's now got 2 ports on the way for this trade route. It's probably pretty safe at this point. I probably missed it, but AK has lost those destroyers in the bottom left. Great snipe from Nickname on this barracks. I have no idea what we missed over here, but Nickname's also lost this barracks. AK is rebuilding one in the bottom right of this island. It's still a net positive, I think, for Nickname, because they're still denying this trade route while getting up their own trade route in the top left. This push from Red is going to fizzle, and it's also going to open up an opportunity for Blue to counter push in this mountain range. There's enough SAMs for AK in this field that at the very least it's uncomfortable for these helicopters. If all these helicopters attacked all 3, like these 3 SAMs all at once, they'd probably be able to take the fight, but there are a number of artillery pieces here for Blue. So the helicopters will not necessarily immediately go for the SAMs. And now Nickname we hear with the beep beep. Relatively low on energy, has started recapping this in the bottom left. There are 3 refineries here, so it is a relatively big deal. Nickname also holds this energy well in the water. Continue with helicopters. And the trade route is nearly complete for Nickname, who's building another dock in the north to try to get this drop going again. And of course we need to check if there's any sneaky commandos in places for Nickname. There aren't any close to AK's base at this point. AK's got 3 commandos posted up on this refinery as a garrison. I mean, there's commandos pretty much on all these locations at this point. And this is good news. AK's got 4 helicopters over here in the top right. A navy to kind of blockade any transport ships from landing and reinforcing this for nickname. There's a barracks for nickname in the top right that AK won't see because it's in the mountains, but 4 helicopters, if they all flew over that barracks, they would see it. They would have enough vision to do so. Commando's trying to trick shot a helicopter as it takes off. But unfortunately for them, they're not able to destroy one of them. And the trade route is now complete. We got the little things on the port moving around, indicating that it's going to start building merchant ships. And we can check the ecos real quick. 1225 for AK. And 1291 for nickname, who is now officially in the lead on the eco. If we notice, nickname's also making more eco per minute at positive 257. AK is a little bit in the red at the moment. Good thing for blue is they're going to win this fight in the top right over time. And likely be able to start setting up their own trade route once that happens. But nickname is working on their 3rd trade route here. And has taken this water gas. It is a lot of units for blue. And AK is going to go for it. The decision is to keep pushing. There's only one SAM, well rather 2 SAMs at home. There's one more on the way. And there's 5 helicopters for blue. AK gets out of this defensive line in the middle of the field, opting to go for another push. There's a ton of SAMs here for AK. Pretty much in both locations. I mean, there's about 10 SAMs on the left-hand side and nearly as many in the field. It just depends on the positioning. Here comes the push from all these helicopters for red. They're going to get off their first rockets because the SAMs aren't super close. And this will drastically thin out the number of units that blue has with this push. Flanked by the tanks, I wonder where these things are going. For nickname, still a lot of helicopters for red. If they can avoid the SAMs, they're going to be great. But AK is now moving up these SAMs. So the next run that the helicopters go for is going to be a little bit more difficult. But there are helicopters, so they refuel and get back in the fight a little bit quicker. But even now, I mean, there's just a lot of helicopters that are dropping. There's even a blue helicopter for AK getting in a dogfight with another helicopter. And this is starting to shift a little bit. This push for AK is still very strong. And clearly this push in the center field is also working. There are 4 merchant ships. We need to zoom in on this because they're the coolest unit in the game. But there's 4 merchant ships now for nickname who's still working on that 3rd trade route. And we'll probably have more money. 1347 for red and 1365 for blue. So I lied. It's still very close. AK is now taking the lead by a little bit. But there's going to be no real answer for nickname. Getting pushed on both sides. Really, the only opportunity is now for nickname to dig into this mountain range. And hope that AK just runs their entire army into it. And even then, it's tough. You don't necessarily want to do that, right? Because then AK just starts capping everything else on the map. Either way, it's a tough position for nickname at this point. They're building 2 more factories in the north. The commandos for red are going to be fine there. Still no trade route for AK. And there's only one more helicopter, so the helicopters must have transferred back. Or I just missed a bunch of red commandos destroying a ton of helicopters on the top right. Maybe that's what happened. I've been known to miss things before. There's a lot going on in this game. I don't know how the players are keeping up with it all. Third port for Nickname is on the way. Nearly completed, which will be a huge eco boost. But the question is whether Red can hold on until that is done. With 3 factories in the north here, it almost feels like Nickname can sense that this position's in a lot of trouble, because otherwise I think that the factories would probably just be close to the airport, potentially. I mean, it'll also open up another avenue of attack. It's actually tanks out of these factories for Red. Mini tanks against the big tanks. Sams actually do decent against tanks if they're in big enough numbers. And this is quite the blob for AK, who's now starting to attack producers for Nickname and has the cover of 7 Sams, making it absolutely impossible for these 6 helicopters of Red to launch against either of these armies. Two more factories, so 5 factories total in the north. And 1447 income for blue, 1426 for red. But both these fronts are going to be won by blue. So now the question becomes, can 3 trade routes for Nickname carry them to survive losing all this, their starting base, and then give them enough money to push very hard from the north, but probably not, just because AK has nearly the same amount of eco. Nickname's going to snipe that town again, which is huge. And has somehow stabilized in the top right. I don't understand how Nickname is still on the top right here. So props. Color me impressed, folks. It's actually all tanks from Nickname out here. So probably just going to send these tanks to try to run by and go right towards AK's base. But certainly it does not look great for red at this moment. There's no rocket anywhere for Nickname that's going to be able to clear any of these units. As mentioned before, it's just a perfect number of SAMs for AK. Nickname's going to get all these helicopters off the airport, which is big, and I think we're going to expect to see one more big push from Nickname. But AK is already capitalizing and building more eco. And a second barracks in the top right. But Nickname's also going to find these barracks. I mean, this is just a wild, wild game. Upper bracket madness. AK finds that building, will kill these other 2 factories. The first airport's about to be destroyed. 1 helicopter might actually be on it. Okay, so it takes off. AK's positioned these SAMs perfectly to cut off any other helicopters from getting out. And that's exactly what happens here. Can't join all these other helicopters, and here comes the big helicopter tank push from Nickname. This will be a big drop for Nickname in the bottom left with those 2 barracks producing commandos. Commandos are a wonderful comeback unit just because of their stealth and their ability to you know, infiltrate your enemy's base and start destroying high value targets. But I think AK is going to lock this down. It's just such a strong army. And a great unit composition. Alright, well these helicopters are going to wipe this blue army. But even without these blue helicopters, these tanks would be in trouble if they fight this army. I mean, they're just going to get body blocked. There's so much blue here. And importantly, Nickname is still alive in the top right and is in fact capping this territory again. And will destroy this town. How many buildings has Nickname sniped? With run-bys, commandos. Jeez. I say that with the utmost respect. More factors from Nickname in the north. Eco-wise, 1591 for red and 1571 for blue. So this has been extremely close on the total income for both players. It shows you how much income a trade route will make, because all this territory over time has been taken by AKA. And it's still even eco on the total numbers. Okay, I'm not even going to say it. That Nickname is going to finally get dislodged from that top right island. Because I'd be lying to you if I said I knew that. As we saw before. Yeah, this transport boat is now ready. There's enough units. And so Nickname's going to start capping this. It'll be tough to get a ton done just because AK can divert units to deal with it. And AK has been picking up all the industry as they push forward, so these two farms. And here comes the deadly push to attack Red's new base. Helicopters for Red are doing their best in the top left, but ultimately the blue SAMs are going to catch up. And then AK is just going to push the coasts, destroy the towns, and the trade routes. And that will in turn destroy Nickname's economy. So Nickname will go down to the lower bracket, like we said at the beginning of the video, and play Tomahawk. And the winner of that game will go on to the grand final of the T1 2023 tournament for Line War. And the eco is going to end 1596 for blue and 1527 for red. It's obviously going to change a little bit now that that's town destroyed. The town is, pardon me, destroyed. And I mean, clearly momentum has not been on red's side for a while. But one heck of a game. Okay, finally the barracks in the top right is cleaned up. Nickname could build another barracks on the mountain, so we won't count them out yet. And it's an impossible situation because Nickname really can't afford to build any SAMs, but there's such a number of helicopters here for AK. That the tanks are in trouble. Huge group of commando and infantry destroy one of the refineries and are slowly going to work on that town. And good landing from Nickname here. But here comes that blue force that just gets diverted from going up to the north. I mean, they're not even really needed in the north. This is just overwhelming numbers now for AKA. And we can just take the top-down look. Whoops, a daisy. Scroll bar. Scroll wheel, pardon me. And this is what we got. Pockets of red. And the big ball of blue. Big wall of blue, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You can see it. A lot of blue on the map. Hats off to both players, though. The pace of this game, how many fronts were open, how successful Nickname was on destroying all those refineries, and all those towns with the Navy on the right-hand side. And then for AK to handle all that and push. Merchant ships don't have any cargo anymore. I mean, this trade route is still up. So we can just focus on this. Easily the coolest unit in the game. Don't at me. Good game, well played. That was upper bracket action. AK Miss goes on to the grand final. And we'll play the winner of Tomahawk and Nickname, which will be the next video we upload. Next video we cast. I don't know who won it, so I mean, we'll just take a look. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for the support, for the views, for the comments, of course, the likes and the subscribes. It all helps. Very much appreciate it. Let's just check the income. Yeah, I mean, this is extremely close. Well played both. Well, hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. If you want to check out the Line War Discord to learn more about the game, chat with folks, absolutely, of course. Drop on in, and you know, check out Twitch if you want. Twitch.tv/SodaQuackers, same name as the YouTube. There's other folks who also stream it as well. We'll see you around. Enjoy. Peace.